And we're live, people. Welcome back to the Goonerverse. It's been a little while. It's a live show. It's a live show that's covering what's hopefully some really good news. It is speculation at the moment, but it is coming from Charles Watts that Bukayo Saka, if all things go to plan, will be well, maybe in the squad for Fulham. Look, we'll go through the quotes because when I do these live shows, especially here on the Goonerverse One, because there is a second, and I'll tell you about the second in a bit. But when we are sort of live talking about sort of news here on the Goonerverse, it's because there's some weight behind it. It's because there's something to suggest that there's actually a reason to kind of be hopeful. And what a boost it would be. What a boost it would be for Bukayo Saka to return and be available to play against Real Madrid. Because that's what we're thinking about, right? I mean, if we get him on the pitch against Fulham in somewhere and against Everton, then that's important minutes in the legs. But the point is he's playing Premier League football, and you've got to think he's ready to play a part against Real Madrid in some way, shape, or form. So we're going to go through all that. But everyone, get your comments in. And let me just tell you a little bit about some stuff we're doing on the Goonerverse. We had the Lewis Skelly video drop yesterday. We're back into action. I'm back in my room. I mean, not fully. I haven't actually moved in yet. I'm just here to film because there's work and stuff going on. But anyway, you don't need to know that. But it's why I've been in my parents' house for like the AFTV lives and stuff. So we've been filming on the set, which was right here. That's where we did the Lewis Skelly video. And I just recorded, actually, as I'm live now, I've just come off recording a video with Alex from the amazing Different Knock, as you know, and Canon podcast. We did a good discussion around Arteta. That's coming tomorrow. A little bit later, I'll tell you more about the Goonerverse too, because I'd love for you all to go tune in, subscribe, and give me your thoughts on a channel that's more about instant reaction. We'll talk about that in a bit. Let's go through what we know in the meantime. And it starts with this. Now, I'm going to just do this. Can you all see that? Let me know in the chat if you can't. I'll make it bigger if you can't. But in the meantime, I'll just read what you need to know. So the first thing I saw was actually this from Doc. If things go to plan, Saka could make the squad for the Fulham game. And as you can see, credited Charles Watts there. And I thought, okay, I'm not sure where I've seen this. I don't know if that's, sometimes, because when we're all kind of talking, hey, big up Max, let me know that you can see everything. Everyone shout out Max, although I don't like that comment theme there. Let's make that a bit, let's go with this. Maybe that's going to look a bit better. Yeah, there we go. Max, thank you. Love as always. Everyone show Max some love. And everyone's saying it's good, very visible. Brilliant. I'm glad that the internet's doing its thing. Cool. So back to this. Because Charles Watts has a YouTube channel, right? So of course he's a journalist. We know he's in press conferences, and we know that he writes for outlets and stuff. But he's got his own YouTube channel. So I thought maybe this came from his YouTube channel. And when people are talking about, when people are talking on YouTube channels, often you can say something that said in a certain way, everyone knows what you mean. But when you read it as text, you think, oh, that actually has a very different meaning. So I was thinking that maybe he had just sort of read elsewhere that Saka was meant to be back after 4 months, and maybe he was just saying if things go to plan, Saka could make the squad for the Fulham game. And you hear it in that way. If I sat here right now and said, I guess if everything's going the way we want it to, Saka could be available for the Fulham game. If you hear that, you could easily take that quote, run away with it, put it on, news aggregators and stuff, and basically saying James thinks always is saying his sources are telling us that Saka's going to be fit. Anyway, turns out there's a little bit more weight to this. And big up Doc, by the way. He's a very good news aggregator. But I saw this from Caught Offside. Breaking news. Bukayo Saka could be back earlier than expected, says Charles Watts. And the quote they've given here, big letters return. Arsenal hopeful of having Bukayo Saka back against Fulham on Tuesday. And this is important to remember because while we're on the Wednesday, second week of the international break, so it feels like we're edging towards the end of an international break, we don't actually play till Tuesday. So there's still a whole other week for Arsenal to really be assessing things and getting an idea of whether Bukayo Saka is available. There's a whole 2 weeks till Real Madrid. Obviously, the Everton trip is next weekend. So there's still a little bit of time. I don't think we need to be stressing too much about. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. If Saka is looking like he's fit and he's on, in training, running around, kicking the ball, and basically rave some Premier League minutes, I don't think we need to worry too much about Real Madrid because there is still quite a bit of distance till that fixture. But the question is he looking good for it? And then this came through. Charles Watts retweeted it. Again, that was the big thing I wanted to know. Is he sort of seconding the quotes that have been attached to his name. Also, he said, latest Arsenal column for caught offside with bits and pieces on Saka and his potential return against Fulham. Miles with Skelly's superb England debut and more. But again, very much retweeting the Arsenal hopeful of having Bukayo Saka back against Fulham on Tuesday. So, this gets interesting. And it gets exciting, let's be honest. So there's a lot of debate online right now. And actually, there's a video coming on AFTV. We kind of had this debate, or at least discussed it in the debate. Basically, do you rush Saka back? And the big question is, what is rushing him back? And I made up a scenario, okay? And I think I'll definitely ask on AFTV. So if Saka plays 10 minutes against Fulham and then 30 minutes against Everton, do you start him against Real Madrid? That's 40 minutes of football. That's Premier League football. I mean, whether it's 10 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour or 90, that's intense football that he'll be playing. If he gets those kind of minutes, I'm actually going to ask you lot in the comment section below. Everyone, just yes or no. If he plays 10 minutes against Fulham, 30 minutes against Everton, managing his minutes back, do you start him against Real Madrid? And I know there's a lot of this. If Saka has one leg, I start him against Madrid, sure. And there's a lot of this as well. Hell no, you don't start him at all. I mean, there's a lot of people who are like, no, you don't. You fundamentally keep him away because there is a yes. No, I don't think so, says Ryan Wilson. You give him 60 or so minutes against Madrid. Thank you all for sending your comments. But it's really interesting how people really are unsure. People are kind of, they're on different ends. Now, slight spoiler for the AFTV video, but I believe Turkish said, yes, you do start him against Real Madrid if that's the case. Robbie and Laurie were edging towards no. Now, it's so difficult, right? Because I'm inclined to say yes. I'm inclined to say, yeah, you do, because you're talking about someone here who will have got, like I said, 40 minutes of football. He's our best player, and it's Real Madrid in the quarterfinals. It's a pretty extreme situation. It is. It's what we all work hard to get. Everyone, Bukayo Saka, the team, they want to get to this moment. Big European nights against the very best. And when it comes to Real Madrid, there's no bigger, there's no better. There's no bigger stage than Real Madrid in the Champions League, bar like the World Cup final and the Champions League final, right? But if you're not talking finals, then this is it, right? And here we are. Bukayo Saka's going to want to be fit for that. He's going to want to play. He's going to make sure he's fit to play in that game. But if you're Arsenal, what do? How do you manage that? Because you've got to think about his long-term, his future. And I've been someone who's really advocated for measuring Saka's minutes, being really careful, not playing him unnecessarily, bringing him off in games and managing his workload. But this is one of those situations where I'm inclined to think if he plays that level of football, 10 and then 30 before Madrid, I think you do start him. But there's a big if there. If that is that he's good to be on the bench for Fulham, comes on for a bit, and then comes on against Everton. What if he's on the bench for Everton? Comes on 15, 20 minutes. I don't think one game's enough to then just chuck him in against Real Madrid. Not when you've got a second leg to think about too, which is going to be the hard leg, probably the one you want him more. You want him for more. I think the other thing that you've got to think about is in Saka's absence across the whole team, who have Arsenal's best players been? You could pretty much credit the back four. Lewis Skelly, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, who look to attack. I think Rice has been brilliant. The odd not great game, but largely been brilliant. And Waneri. Now, Waneri is the problem solver, right? He's the one who's come in and played on the right. And at times we've gone, wow, he's given us something else out there. For the sheer fact that Ethan Waneri is in that good form, I would... It just makes that more difficult to justify starting Saka if he hasn't got at least 2 games under his belt. And he's literally only got 2 games before Real Madrid. So the other question is, how does Mikel see it? Because if he wants Marino up front, then that, again, I'm thinking, I don't want to go down that route. Playing a number 6 up front as well, or a number 8 up front as well as he might have done Marino. I'd much rather sort of roll the dice, not on Saka's fitness and his future and his injury ever. Just I'm talking about basically who's a better player, a slightly less match fit Saka. Let's assume he's like good to go. The hamstring's fine, passing the test. He's come on in games and the question is more about match fitness and readiness. I'd rather 70% Saka than 100% Mourinho, if I'm really honest. And that's where, there's kind of that element. How's Arteta looking at tactically? But then maybe that doesn't matter because I'd be looking more at Trossard in the false nine anyway. But, maybe, again, Saka and Mourinho don't replay the same positions. But the point I'm really trying to make is, as I'm sort of waffling along here, is I think you want to go with Waneri, Mourinho, Trossard. I've sort of stumbled on my own point now. Sorry. I think you want to go with you want to go with Saka, Trossard, Martinelli as a front three. But if he's going with Mourinho because he's thinking I want more experience on the pitch and I want more players that know what it is that we do, blah blah, then I'd be inclined to sort of risk it more and get Saka in there, at least to be delivering it to the back post. There we go. It's different not coming in. What a troll. We have Mourinho, mate. Don't need Saka. Get him out of here. Everyone go on subscribe. Alex, I was telling everyone about the video we've got coming out. Look at the amount of comments coming in. Yeah, right. You could play Waneri false nine. That's what I was trying to say, and I was making a complete mess of saying it. You could play Waneri false nine. You could, if he's basically going, I'm not going to start Waneri because Real Madrid is too big a game. Right. I stumbled on my thought after talking complete nonsense for 2 minutes. I've stumbled on the thought I was trying to say, and now I'm fumbling again. If he's thinking, I want seniority, so I'm going to go Martinelli on the right, Trossard on the left, and Mourinho up front, I'd rather a 70% match fit, not physically fit, match fit Saka playing so that he's more inclined to not play Mourinho and play Trossard up front than, basically, because we know he likes seniority, Arteta. We know that. We know that he likes to, go for the experienced players that he trusts. And while I do actually think he'll be giving Lewis Skelly the minutes in this game, and the Calafiori injury might be forcing that anyway, I think he'll be reluctant to play Waneri as well as, having sort of the Saka injury sort of doubt in his mind. I got there in the end. My word, that was a struggle. I need to get back into the swing of these lives. I haven't done them for a while. And I need to kind of get back used to not being able to just hit the off button and re-record. And Max makes a good point. I just hope we aren't rushing him to be back for the Madrid game. If we aren't, then ease him back starting from the Fulham game. Yeah, and the question of rush is, it really comes down to physical fitness, the condition of that hamstring. Let me show you this. Here we go. Share this tab instead. So I want you all to see this. So simple Google. How long does it take to recover from a hamstring? I put surgery in there. Recovery from hamstring tear surgery typically takes 4 to 6 months for full unrestricted activity with a good physical therapy program, but the timeline can vary based on the extent of surgery, individual factors. People, we're not even at 4 months. Like it says 4 to 6. We've not hit 4. He got injured at the end of December, which means end of April would be the start of 4 to 6 months. So you've done all of January, all of February, all of March. So the Madrid tie comes in 2 weeks. So you could argue that's kind of entering beginning mid-April. But I mean, when you hear that, it does feel a bit soon. Now, look, that's a very generic thing I've put into Google. How long does it take for him to recover? There'll be physios and people who have looked at him and they'll have done all the work and they'll have come to the conclusion of, how long the recovery is actually going to take with far more information that result in scans. Otherwise, if it was as easy as this, they'd all just be using Google, right? They wouldn't bother with all their fancy equipment. But yeah, this is probably important to remember too. Vig says 4 to 6 months is the worst case scenario. Saka would want to play against Madrid. Absolutely. And this is also a great point from telling me that's for regular people not working in world-class medical teams, though. Very, very true. Dervale says, I think if you type grade 3 hamstring tear, it's about 13 weeks. So that is 4 months, right? And we've not really got there yet. I also, again, I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but can you have surgery on something that wasn't like a proper full tear? Like, could it be that it wasn't like a major tear, but he had surgery anyway for like a better recovery? I don't know if that's something that could happen. I'm just wondering. But I mean, there was some pretty graphic description of it, like there was a serious tear, right? Like, I don't want to go into it because it makes me feel queasy. But I mean, Jay's answering my question saying, yeah, you can. You could have therapy surgery on a tear that wasn't kind of like a full complete tear. So it could be that. He also says, but of course it's a risk. So yeah, but it sounded like he had a pretty bad one. But look at the range of comments. Please don't play Saka against Fulham. He's had the best treatment possible there, and we don't know how bad the injury is. Absolutely. What other comments came in? Depends how he plays. I mean, that's also another good point. What if he comes on against Fulham and Everton, a bit like Ben White, just looks completely rusty and just not quite up to scratch? I mean, at that point, you're better off with a 100% fit Marina than a 70% fit Saka, maybe. Start Ethan, then bring him on. And I think that's what we'll do for the home leg, if I'm really honest. No need him for the second leg. Yeah, very, very true. The other point is, what if we force it and we go through and then he's not available for PSG or whoever, Villa? That's not disrespect to Emery and Villa. So yeah, there's a lot to juggle here. I think one thing I'll say about Arsenal, though, and actually I'm going to give them credit because I don't think we've always managed minutes very well. I don't think we've always managed game time, workload, things like that. I don't think we've always done a very good job on that front for players. What I do think, though, is when it's come to bringing players back, when it's been a case of actually bringing players back into the fold, and ensuring that they've had the proper rest. I think bar Partey getting thrown back on in the North London derby when he clearly wasn't fit, I think since then we've managed things really well. I think players have generally come back after a long time out. They've had surgeries required. You could argue Ben White should have had the surgery sooner, but you don't know what's being said behind the scenes. There'll be experts advising on what they should or shouldn't do. I think largely Arsenal have actually taken their time with players, and when they've brought them back, they've fully been back. I mean, look at Mikel Merino. He had this injury, the shoulder injury. We thought he was going to be 2 months out. It ended up only really being a month, maybe month and a half. And he was on the bench, and a lot of people thought, well, has he just been rushed back here? But actually, he came on and he's been like fit ever since. Because I think Arsenal have actually, when a player's kind of brought back to the bench, they're ready to bring them on. They're ready to play. Gabby Jesus came on against Fulham. Was it March or April of the 22-23 season? I think it was March. And again, he was on the bench. People thought, well, he might just be on the bench just in case, maybe for 5-10 minutes, we really need a goal. But we were 3-0 up and he came on and played, I think, 25-30 minutes, which showed you that they were clearly quite confident, very confident, in fact, in his fitness. So that's another side of it. I think Arsenal, for the criticism they get for the management of players, which I have absolutely been a part of, the criticism there. I do think when it comes to bringing players back, they've never, or in recent times, they haven't. The last few years, I can confidently say they haven't rushed players back, and they've been very, careful and actually correct in their kind of management of bringing players back. Guys, if you're spamming comments, like, I'll just put you in a timeout. Like, let's have good football conversation in the chat. This is another good question. What does Arteta do when everyone Saka's back? I actually did a video on this on the Goonerverse, so I'm going to just encourage you guys to go and watch that. If you go to the homepage on the Goonerverse, it's in the analysis section. You'll see it there, but I think there's a lot he could do there's a lot of stuff he could do. Ryan says, James, look at it this way. Is it worth risking Saka in that game for a trophy we probably won't win? It could cost us the Prem next season, which is another really good way to look at it. But I'll be really honest. I think we've got to live in the here and now. I don't think we can live going, well, let's not do everything we can to beat Real Madrid and win this Champions League because there's always next season to win trophies. We don't know that there's next season to win trophies. We thought this season we were going to be in there with a real shout, and a real fight for the Premier League, and we're not. So I don't think we can just. I get what you're saying, like, Ryan. I do. I'm not trying to be super critical here. But I don't think we can just assume that these kind of opportunities for big nights and big moments and to be super competitive on the big stage, I don't think we can just assume that that's just going to come around again. It should, a club of Arsenal size, it should, and we expect it to, and that's the standards. But I think you've got to somewhat live in the moment too. It's Real Madrid in 2 weeks. Have a bloody good go at it. Yeah, people saying Jurien Timber in the chat, not the real Jurien Timber. Could Could you play Winery false nine? Yeah. I mean, I was sort of alluding to this in Trossard as well when I was sort of fumbling through my Marino part segment of the show. Let me just I want to go through something else. If you just bear with me 1 second. Loads of ads popping up on Transfermarkt, which is really annoying. I want to go through Premier League fixtures. Right, here we go. So let's bring this up. You don't want to see this. You want to see this. There we go. What we got here is Premier League fixtures that Saka's played in. I mean, look at this. Like 5 assists in a row. Unbelievable start to the season he had. What was that 5, 7, 8, 10. So he's on 10 assists before this big hamstring injury. Now, output was there. I mean, only 1, 2, 3, 4 games up to game week 13, we hadn't registered a goal or assist. A little bit of a dry spell between games 14 to 17. But you made a tremendous start on the output front for Arsenal this season. Now, this is just looking at the league. Games he's missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So he missed 12 league games. I mean, just look at it. And do you know what? It's not even like that horrendous a run. I mean, this isn't great. Okay, yeah, it's not a great run. But I mean, God, if you have Saka, for 1 or 2 of these, could things be different? You'd expect it to be different, but that's just not the world we live in. Players get injuries, you've got to prepare for it. And we didn't do enough in the January window. These are the games he's missed. And the injury happened on the 21st of December. So 26th of March. I mean, we're literally 3 months from that. I'm nervous about the idea of bringing him back. If I'm really honest, I am nervous about the idea that if he's had surgery and it's match fitness, it's the amount of football he's played before, it's the demands that will be put on him. But it's just kind of good to recap what he's missed, and he's also missed so Nations League games with England, hamstring injury here. And he missed Albania and Latvia where Lewis Skelly played, and he's missed this in the Champions League. So he actually missed 4 Champions League games. Yeah, 2 in the groups and then 2 knockouts. So he's missed a lot of football. He's missed a lot of big football. Bukayo Saka. And let's just have a little look at this as well. I want to show you Arsenal's fixtures. Because the other question is, well, if we're going to take our time with him, where could we see him? Now, basically, as I mentioned, 10 minutes here, 30 minutes here. Does he start against Real Madrid? I'm leaning towards yes, but my word, it's really difficult. Is there a world in which his minutes are managed through these games? Let's say he's available, off the bench for 10, off the bench for 15, off the bench for 20, 30, unless we're leading and you just think actually there's no point bringing him on. Can you get a first start here before we go to the Bernabeu? Then at least that's 3.5 months. I mean, it's not much. It's nearly 4 months. I mean, it's not much better. But again, I'm not physio. I'm not there with Bukayo and the medical team. And maybe just someone who recovers brilliantly. Who'd have thought Timber would have been able to play all this football? I'm still nervous about that, but who'd have thought Timber would have been able to play all this football? And the thing is, if we don't beat Real Madrid, what else is there really? I don't know, Anfield, because you just want to win. But I mean, they'll probably have the title by then. Of course, we need to cement top 4. I acknowledge that side of things. Newcastle at home, because they've beaten us 3 times. It'd be quite nice to beat them. If I just look at the table, how are we looking for top 4? 58 points. We're 4 points ahead of Forest. I wouldn't say we're clear of them, but it's a nice-ish position. We've won as many games as Nottingham Forest this season, people. I'd say 9 points a healthy gap on Chelsea and 10 points a healthy gap on Man City. So I'm feeling quite good about, cementing second place. So do we need to rush Saka back for anything kind of serious there in terms of just sort of securing our spot in the top 4? I don't know. There's a lot of things to weigh up, people. There's a lot of things to weigh up. And I'm just in the camp of, it's all about, someone made a really good point. How does he look against Fulham and Everton? Let's say he does get 10 and then 30 minutes. How does he look? But it's a really interesting update. And I don't really like to mention ITK that I don't know anything about. But there were ITKs saying, that there was a feeling that, he was like, kind of, fit in the international break, and that, and when I say ITKs, I'm just talking about the odd tweet that went viral. I'm not talking about legends like Handaverse, who's been spot on with almost everything he's come out and said. There's just been sort of other little rooms and stuff across the Twitterverse, the Xverse, the Goonerverse, that, it was looking quite good for Bukayo Saka, and that we could really expect him to sort of basically be involved. So maybe we should be hopeful. But I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of the situation there. Let's go through the super chats. Alonso asks, Osterman and Seska over just Isak. Isak usually gets hurt. Injury record's been good, to be fair. Osterman and Sesko, no, because I don't think we need both. And if Isak's the better player, I'd go for Isak, because we only play with one up front, so only one of them's going to play anyway. And I think Havertz, he's a decent player, and as a rotational player to play up front when we need him to come off the bench, to play as a box-to-box, to go 4-4-2, I think Havertz is fine. Shannon says, could you play Saka, Winnie, and Martinez up front three if Saka is fit? Ethan in the 9-ish. His finishing is good. Yeah. I mean, I think you could, but I don't think he would. I think if you're going to play a false 9, he'd revert to Trossard. And if you're playing the player who's the most similar to Havertz, then he's going to go Marino. So while I think you could see Winnie in the false 9, as in I would like to, I think it's possible. I just don't think Arteta will. I think, it was what I was struggling to say earlier. I think he just really, really defers to seniority. And so I think if Saka's fit, he'll definitely play him. But if it's a case of like Wineri, Marino, Trossard, Martinelli, one of them has to miss out, I think it's more likely going to be in Wineri, which is a shame. But let's see. Everyone, big thanks for tuning in. I'm not going to the Real Madrid match. No. I'll be covering it on AFTV on a watch along. And I am back from Australia. Yeah, but oh my word, I miss it. I really miss it. What a place. Knowing Arteta, he's been training for the last month, which would not surprise me, because that's just Mikel, isn't it? Play him if he's fit, but start him and bring him off to rest. It's harder to get up to match speed from the bench, so start him. That's a very good point too. I think he skips the first leg and goes for the second. As a former athlete that got injured, I know it's counterintuitive to most people, but we want him back quickly because he will start losing muscle, etc., and could be susceptible to other injuries. That is a very interesting way of looking at it. So thank you, Lei. Hope I pronounced that right. Lei. Thank you very much for that comment. That's a good point. I mean, at the same time, you kind of also, in the right way, want to get them, playing. Would be so cool to play Martinelli right wing. Well, it would be so Mikel. Sorry, not so cool. Would be so Mikel. I got distracted by another comment. Sorry, Max. It would be so Mikel to play Martinelli right wing over here. Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It'd be so Mikel. Now, I want to use this last minute or two to ask you all to do me a favor. I very rarely do this, but I would like you all to do me a little favor. I'm going to show you this. Can I make that a little bit bigger? There's no point. So I'm just messing around with the internet. Here we go, everyone. The Goonerverse 2. Ooh, I know. Second channel. And a lot of people are asking, like, James, why? What's the point? And do you know what? It's a very good question. It's a very good question. Like, the Goonerverse, when I started the Goonerverse, I really wanted it to be a place where I use the word information. So whether it's analysis, because I felt I had some insight and I covered it with data, or whether it were news that I felt was worth covering from a position of information, who's telling us what. Like I've tried to do on this live stream, telling you where the information's come from and actually looking at it in a bit more depth. The Goonerverse is very much about the depth, the data, the insight, sourcing information, all that. The Goonerverse 2 is just about almost instant reactions. There is always secondary news that does the rounds. There's always other things that are being talked about. There's other things that are updates to news we might have covered here. For example, there might be another report that comes out saying that Saka is going to be fit. I've done this live show. I've given you my thoughts, but maybe there's an update you should know about. Maybe there's just sort of other bits and bobs going on that, just worth a quick reaction to. And that's what the Goonerverse 2 is all about. So if you are interested in my instant reaction, when I say instant, I mean instant. Like, this This one here, Lewis Skelly, the game was still going on when I uploaded that video about Lewis Skelly's goal. I think it was 10 minutes after he scored or 20 minutes or whatever. Like, we're talking instant reactions. And today we've talked about Real Madrid hijacking the Zubimendi deal, because there are reports from Spain that apparently that's what they're going to try to do, that they really want to sign him and they're making moves to do it. So, yeah, this is where you're going to kind of get my reaction to that kind of stuff. It wasn't David Ornstein, Fabrizio Romano, real official reports saying it, but it was doing the rounds on X. It's been talked about on social media, so I'll give you a reaction. But as you can see, no edit, nothing fancy. It's just off my phone upload. I could barely get any decent lighting. That's what the Goonerverse 2 is all about. If you're interested in subscribing and being kept up to date with that kind of content, I really, really appreciate it. It's just, I'm trying to cover the Arsenal news, people, here. And I felt a second channel was the best way to do it, to differentiate it from what we do it here. So from what we do here on the Goonerverse. So I hope you'll indulge me in that. But big thank you all for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. We're going to leave it there. Bukayo Saka could be fit for Fulham. And my word, wouldn't that be a boost? Big thanks, everyone. Catch you all in a bit.